Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So the day has finally came, you guys, when I will be discussing the DNA of Bianco Latte from Giardini di Toscana and all the inspirations that I have came across and tested myself of Bianco Latte up until this present moment on, and I will let you know which one do I think it's the closest, which one do I like the most, even though when it comes to which one do I like the most, I feel like it will be kind of hard to choose, but we will talk about that part when we will get to that part of the video. Anyways, you got what I meant. So you guys, I have here a decant of Bianco Latte from Giardini di Toscana. I also have an inspiration that's called La Nuit Blanche. I will add it here because I have just a decant of that fragrance. I have another inspiration here called 711 Bianco Latte from Parfumat.ro, website here based in Romania. And in terms of inspirations, I have other inspirations that I feel like are much more popular. Perhaps you've already watched my reviews for this. This is Eclaire by Lattafa. I have here Nyla Vanielle from Arabiyat Prestige, and also last but not least Tiramisu Caramel from Zimaya. From Zimaya. So first things first, let me tell you how does Bianco Latte smell like to me, but before that let me arrange a little bit things here. So I will spray Bianco Latte here on my skin and I will let you know how this fragrance smells like to me. Wow, see, I feel like this right from the start, this is so projecting. I did one spray, I didn't even bring my hand close to my nose and I was already able to smell it. By the way, hold on a second because I want to make sure, yes, that the microphone is working. So back to Bianco Latte. So right from the start, this opens up, you guys, with the most beautiful, delicious, sweet condensed milk accord. Feels pretty cold in the opening, but it's very rich and full-bodied at the same time. And right behind this milky accord, I pick up a lot of tonka bean in the fragrance. And if you have ever smelled actual tonka beans in real life, you will automatically pick up that facet here because it's very pronounced. But I love what effect it adds to this fragrance. It adds this almost like a deep, nutty, sugary quality to the lactonic accord. So right from the start, the lactonic accord, it doesn't feel like it floats in a sea of nothing pretty much. I feel like the lactonic accord, that as a standalone accord, yes, it's dense, yes, it's sweet, yes, it's cold in the opening, then it will get much more warm as it gets a chance to sit on your skin. But it also has a lot of other notes that ground it a little bit, or perhaps not ground, because I can't say that they add depth necessarily, but they add a lot of richness and a lot of complexity also to the lactonic accord. So I'd say in the opening are these two facets that I pick up the most with, you guys, with gentle honeyed facets, with a little bit of caramel that slowly but surely starts to shine as well, a pinch of toast, something vanillic. I feel like, you guys, when it comes to Bianco Latte, the attention in a way is split equally, dare I say, or not really equally, like 30%, 30%, or 20%, 20%, anyways, you got what I mean. But at the same time, you have more notes and more accords that equally shine in this fragrance, whereas I feel like in other inspirations that I have tried, usually it's the lactonic accord that's the accord that's the most highlighted, or perhaps let's just say it's the caramel accord, or perhaps it's a different type of accord that's the most highlighted. See, now as I'm speaking, I forgot to bring Caramel Cascade from Paris Corner. Yes, I will briefly talk a little bit about Caramel Cascade after I will talk about Bianco Latte. So this is the fragrance, you guys. It has a lot of richness, it has a lot of oomph about it. It's definitely sweet, but the sweetness, I don't find it sickly sweet. But again, this fragrance to me embodies that cozy, relaxing, grounding type of fragrance that at least this is the effect it has when I smell it myself. It makes me feel relaxed, it makes me feel very cozy, it makes me feel very girly, very gentle, very feminine, but in the most cozy and calming and relaxing way possible. Yeah. Beautiful scent profile, you guys, beautiful, so smooth, so refined, but at the same time it's such a decadent scent profile. It's not just the milky accord or the lactonic accord that shines a lot. No, the attention, like I mentioned, it's split equally amongst all the accords. You pick up that beautiful, creamy, dense, full-bodied, condensed milk accord that's sweet. Then you pick up that deep, nutty, rich tonka bean that's sweet as well, but it adds this nutty undertone almost, and this somehow of a sugar effect to the fragrance, but a deep kind of sugary effect. Then I pick up a gentle, warm, enveloping honey. Then I pick up a little bit of caramel with something vanillic. It's almost like you have a caramel accord infused with something vanillic, or the other way around, the vanilla accord infused with something caramelly. You know, it feels rich, it feels a little bit sticky, but it doesn't go into the toffee direction, let's just say. Judging Bianco Latte as a standalone fragrance, it's relatively a simplistic fragrance, but it has its own twist. You know, it's made around indeed electronic accord, but it doesn't smell just like a glass of warm milk. You know, it smells like a glass of warm milk with lots of grated tonka beans, with a little bit of honey, a drop or two of vanilla essence, a little bit of caramel syrup. So in all, it smells gourmand for sure, it smells edible for sure, it smells happy and uplifting. This is the kind of fragrance that has this uplifting aura about it, you know, this very uplifting on one hand, and also this lightheartedness about it. It's the opposite of a serious fragrance, I feel like. So this is how Bianco Latte smells like to my nose. This is indeed the most long-lasting fragrance between the OG and all the inspirations. This is the one that's lingering the most on my skin. I feel like I get anywhere from 7 to 7.5 hours, but that's about it. But also where I think Bianco Latte shines as a standalone fragrance is the projection. Like I've mentioned at the beginning of the video, I did one spray, you guys. Let me show you. Do you see the oiliness of this fragrance? Yeah, I think that's better. Do you see how oily this fragrance is? So not only that it lasts around 7.5 hours, but also this fragrance projects in such a beautiful way. So definitely this has extra bonus points for the projection, for the sillage, for the performance in general, you know, even though I've tried other fragrances that last well, but I don't think they project as much. So this is what I think about Bianco Latte as a standalone fragrance. Now let me quickly mention Caramel Cascade from Paris Corner. Now you guys, Caramel Cascade from Paris Corner, even though I think this was released as an inspiration to Bianco Latte, I feel like it's more of a twist on the DNA. I think in Caramel Cascade it's the tonka beans that are the most highlighted, paired with a rich syrupy honey accord and with lots of caramel in that fragrance. So in a way it lacks the lactonic accord, and it lacks this lightheartedness that Bianco Latte has, you know, and like I've mentioned, the lactonic accord that makes Bianco Latte, you know. So I don't think that's the closest inspiration. I do think that fragrance shines in its own way, especially if you love to use it layered with other nutty fragrances, with other sweet fragrances. I love how the fragrance smells like, and I love the scent profile, though bear in mind I don't think it's the safest one out there, especially when I'm looking at the fragrances I have here. The feedback I got on that fragrance, either from people who already had it or from people who purchased it, it's pretty mixed. I feel like people either loved it or they really hated it, honestly. I feel like people either smelled mushrooms in that fragrance or they were madly in love with that fragrance and they used it layered with a lot of their other fragrances. Now, luckily I don't pick up mushroom in that fragrance, but keep this aspect in mind. If you are interested in Caramel Cascade, better start with a sample or start with a decant. But I wouldn't really say that Caramel Cascade, again, was released as a dupe, like a one-on-one dupe. I think it's more of a twist on the DNA and they have added their own thing going on there. So yeah, don't purchase Caramel Cascade if you are looking for a spot-on inspiration. Let's start, you guys, with the inspirations. I feel like, at least for Eclaire, for Tiramisu Caramel, and for Nyla Vanielle, I have dedicated videos. So if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts on these fragrances, any of them, feel free to check them out. So Eclaire by Lattafa. So Eclaire by Lattafa, it's a little bit boozy in the opening. I feel like the alcohol blast that you have in the opening paired with the tonka bean results into this cooling, boozy, nutty effect in the opening. Yeah, see, maybe I should let it aside a little bit so the alcohol blast fades away, even though I don't mind what the alcohol opening adds to the fragrance, because like I've mentioned, it smells boozy in the opening, but I don't think it was on purpose, because it's the alcohol blast that I get from spraying the fragrance, you know. It's not like they have a boozy accord in the actual fragrance, but it's a nice touch, why not? I mean, it doesn't ruin the composition, you know. Eclaire definitely follows a very similar direction to Bianco Latte. To me, Eclaire, in the most simplistic way possible, smells like a glass of milk with a teaspoon of honey and a little bit of grated tonka beans. So yes, you have the milk accord that feels, again, warm, dense and rich, with a teaspoon of honey, so you have the most gentle, subtle, delicate honeyed facet lingering there in the background, and a lot of grated tonka beans, because I do pick up that beautiful deep sugary quality in this fragrance as well. And what I pick up added is this powdered sugar effect, especially on clothes. I feel like on my skin, let's just say that the lactonic accord shines a little bit more, but on my clothes, especially a few hours in, I feel like what's lingering the most is that lactonic accord. It's almost like, again, you take a glass of milk with everything I've described you, but then you add 1 or 2 or 3 packets of this type of sugar, you know, that you use for baking purposes. Is that exactly? It's like a powdered sugar infused with vanilla. You know what I mean? And if you are baking, let's just say here and there, not like I'm baking all the time, but if you have ever baked and you have used something like this, you know how this smells like. And I feel like this is what makes Eclaire, let's just say, go in a bit of a different direction while maintaining the calm and heart of Bianco Latte, you know? This has, like I've mentioned, the added powdery sugary facet. And to me, the lactonic accord, it feels much more muted, a little bit more subdued than the lactonic accord in Bianco Latte. And also, I don't pick up much caramel in this fragrance, honestly. If anything, I don't think I pick it up pretty much at all, at least not now. And see, when I smell this fragrance, I already pick up that caramel with the nutty tonka beans, with the vanilla, with the lactonic accord. Like I've mentioned, the attention is split equally amongst the notes here, whereas to me in Eclaire by Lattafa, the attention goes pretty much to the lactonic accord, and then all the other facets and nuances you get, it's almost like in a way to decorate the lactonic accord. You know what I mean? Like to add different facets to the lactonic accord. So this is how Eclaire by Lattafa smells like to me. I feel like it's pretty similar. 70% similar, dare I say, but keep in mind the added powdery sugary facet. Keep in mind the lactonic accord is not as dense and rich and full-bodied, and keep in mind this highlights electronic accord much more than the caramel and everything else. So next, you guys, we have a tiramisu caramel from Zimaya, a fragrance that I have just recently reviewed. So when it comes to tiramisu caramel, you guys, right from the start, I have to say this is a reinterpretation of the DNA of Bianco Latte. I feel like it's the most similar to Bianco Latte in the opening, but in the opening also keep in mind for a few minutes it has this almost this like closed off effect about it. It's almost like you try to smell it but you can barely pick up what you are actually smelling there. You get this more of an abstract scent profile that will remind you for sure of Bianco Latte, but keep in mind it's more closed off and muted. But then give it like few minutes in the opening and the fragrance as it stays, it opens up much more, and I start to pick up the lactonic accord, you guys. I start to pick up the honey facet, I start to pick up the tonka bean accord, and to me this is what makes Bianco Latte, you know, of course with the added caramel. But what happens here? So yes, the opening very similar to Bianco Latte, much softer, and keep in mind it's a little bit more closed off, but then as the fragrance develops you have the most beautiful, you guys, nostalgic and delicious, to me at least, butterscotch caramel accord that in a way moves forward and it shines, it overshines all the other notes. Again, I'm not mad about this effect because I love the smell of butterscotch caramel, but it's that type of butterscotch caramel, oh my god, I cannot pronounce it. It's that type of butterscotch caramel that has a milky feeling. So imagine the DNA of Bianco Latte moves in the background and then you have the butterscotch caramel that envelops it everywhere, you know, so you smell traces of something reminiscent to Bianco Latte through that beautiful, sticky, rich, dense butterscotch caramel with a milky feeling. Yeah, this is definitely more of a twist, at least to my nose, you guys, and at least compared to other inspirations that I have tried, it's the caramel that shines the most. So if in Eclaire it was the lactonic accord that was the most highlighted and all the other facets acted more in a way to dress it up a little bit, to zhuzh it up, let's just say, in Tiramisu caramel, to me it's the caramel accord that's the most highlighted, and then all the other facets reminiscent of Bianco Latte. So the gentle honeyed facet, that beautiful grated tonka bean effect, the lactonic accord, they go in the background and they are more and more subtle, you know, as the caramel accord gets more and more emphasized. Yes, you guys, so to me this is the least lactonic interpretation of Bianco Latte. So perhaps if you are struggling with lactonic facets in your fragrances, if you wanted something that's similar to Bianco Latte for sure, but perhaps you don't want to smell like sweet milk or anything like this, I'd say go for this one. This is, again, I feel like all are very light-hearted and cozy and fun and girly and playful, you know. all embody the same energy to me, but to me this is extra gourmand and extra edible because of the way they did the caramel accord here. So those were my thoughts on tiramisu caramel. Now let me briefly mention the other fragrance. Sorry for the noise. Let me briefly mention this one, La Nuit Blanche. Yeah, I feel like this is one of the softest fragrances inspired by Bianco Latte. So even though it manages to replicate the scent profile of Bianco Latte in a very realistic way, let's just say, I think this is the softest. Right from the start, I pick up gentle honeyed facets that feel warm, that feel cozy, that feel enveloping. They add sweetness, but they also add a little bit of richness. I pick up a little bit of caramel. At this moment on, I feel like the caramel lacks the body of the caramel, that sticky facet, you know. And I pick up a little bit of something milky and lactonic with some grated tonka beans. Yeah, so when I smell this fragrance, of course, I am automatically thinking of Bianco Latte because it is a beautiful inspiration that does justice. It's just very soft, you guys, to my nose. One of the softest that I have tried. Yeah, very faint, see? Even when I smell it compared to Eclaire, very faint. Yeah, not to say that Eclaire is a beast mode of a fragrance, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's beautiful, you guys. It's beautiful. I cannot complain about the scent profile. The thing is, I find it pretty soft and muted. And yeah, I think there are others that manage to give you more of a complex sensory experience, if you understand what I mean. Like, it's not just the scent itself, but you have the texture as well, you know? And I feel like that makes a difference. So yes, no, those were briefly my thoughts on that fragrance. Now let's move on to the next one, 711 Bianco Latte from Parfumat.ro. I've spoken about this website in some videos of mine. See, you guys, this to me, again, it's an outstanding inspiration of Bianco Latte. Now, also, let me mention something, you guys. Please keep in mind all these fragrances have that common Bianco Latte undertone about them, you know. This is why they are inspirations. It's hard to compare. You know what? I feel like it's almost like I have to compare basically 5 different tiramisu recipes or something like this, you know what I mean? So of course they will all taste like tiramisu because you need to put the ingredients that makes tiramisu, but then the concentration differs, the origin of the raw material difference or the ingredient, you know what I mean? If you use one type of cocoa powder, it results into one effect. If you use a different type of cocoa powder, it results into a different flavor. And I feel like a very similar situation happens here with the fragrances. So keep in mind, I don't think you need to pay close attention to be able to spot the differences, you know? I feel like when it comes to some fragrances, the differences are more noticeable, whereas when it comes to other fragrances, the differences are not as noticeable, you know? Now this one, I don't know why smelling it compared to all these other fragrances, I pick up something citrusy. But maybe it's just my nose. So I'd say this manages to capture the richness of the lactonic accord. Again, I think what the team from Parfumat did with this fragrance, which is a beautiful job, by the way, they again highlighted the most the lactonic accord. So this is the richest, the thickest, the densest. It feels like it envelops you, the lactonic accord, you know? With gentle honeyed facets, with slight peaks of tonka bean accord. I don't pick up anything caramel in this fragrance. So to me, what makes this fragrance stand out is the way they did the lactonic accord, which, like I've mentioned, again, is the creamiest, is the densest, is the richest, is the thickest of all these fragrances that I have tried. See, but it lacks the caramel, it lacks that highlighted tonka bean effect. I feel like the tonka bean is much more muted here. But it is a beautiful inspiration. Again, when you smell this fragrance, especially when you smell it as a standalone fragrance and not when you try to compare it with a bunch of other inspirations, you will get the Bianco Latte undertone. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let me show you the oiliness of this fragrance. So do you see how oily this fragrance from Parfumat is? I hope you do. Do you see how oily it is? So longevity for this fragrance is not an issue. What I feel like happens is this stays closer to my skin from what I've noticed, but this is so oily, you guys. It feels like legit I'm rubbing oil everywhere on my skin. And even after rubbing this fragrance, do you see? Hold on, because, this is so hard. Yeah, I hope you do. Do you see? And this is after rubbing the fragrance in. So yes, the level of the oil concentration in this fragrance is amazing. Yeah, see here I pick up the lactonic accord with vanilla. It's almost like you add a lot of milk in a glass. You grate a little bit of tonka beans, you add one small drop of vanilla essence, and you grate a little bit of something from one tonka bean, you know, because the tonka bean is a little bit more muted. But here the lactonic accord feels like it legit envelops you. Yeah, something I appreciate about this blend in particular is how layered this fragrance feels. Even though I feel like it's more of a simplistic interpretation of Bianco Latte, but I appreciate the level of oiliness this fragrance has, because even if, let's just say, maybe you have Bianco Latte in your collection, but if you apply something like this as a base, you guys, legit, this fragrance feels like oil. Like I am rubbing oil. And even, have you watched my review for 28 flavors from Rogue Perfumes? And I showed you in that video how oily that fragrance was, and even after rubbing it in my skin, which is something you're not supposed to do, but I did it for the sake of the video, my skin felt oily. It almost had like a shiny oily cast. Here you have this situation happening as well. I don't know if you can see. And this is after I have rubbed in the fragrance. Yeah. So that's that. Beautiful inspiration, a more simplistic interpretation, but beautiful. Now, last but not least, you guys, let me mention Nyla Vanielle, a fragrance that I recently uploaded my review on it. Beautiful inspiration, you guys. One of the closest inspirations. Let me just spray it for the sake of the video. One of the closest inspirations that I have tried myself to Bianco Latte. I feel like I will have to apply it on my skin to be able to properly tell you, because after smelling so many fragrances that all smell more or less alike, I feel like it's kind of harder now for my nose to pick up the differences. So let's see. Okay, so this opens up, you guys, with a honey accord, with a milky accord enveloped in honey, and with that specific grated tonka bean effect. I feel like this is the closest inspiration I have came across Bianco Latte that highlights the honey accord, the lactonic accord. The lactonic accord doesn't feel muted and more thin like it feels in Eclaire by Lattafa. It feels rich and decadent and full-bodied. It feels very similar to how the lactonic accord feels here in 711 Bianco Latte from Parfumat. But you guys, you have right from the start the honey that's much more emphasized in this fragrance as well. So all in all, this feels extremely thick and layered and dense. Yeah, so I pick up the lactonic accord that's sweet and creamy and dense. I pick up the honey that adds another layer of something sweet. That beautiful grated tonka bean effect that I love in all of these fragrances. Yes, and I start to pick up caramel as well, caramel and vanilla. And even though the caramel and the vanilla accord, to me smells like a caramel infused vanilla accord, or the other way around, like a vanilla infused caramel accord. You know, it has something like this caramelly vanillic mix, like a little bit of both, that add again richness and sweetness also. So this feels much more layered, this has much more things going on, and in a way, so I was speaking with myself because the camera turned off and I didn't realize, and I'm not really sure when it cut off, but anyways, I was discussing Nyla Vanielle, and I was telling you how I feel like this is the closest one to Bianco Latte, because minus the opening part, I feel like the attention is split not really equally, but somewhat more equally amongst the notes, you know. So it's not just the lactonic accord that's the most highlighted. You have that beautiful creamy, dense, sweet lactonic accord. Then you have that beautiful honeyed facet that's gentle, that's warm, nothing animalic, nothing sharp about it. It just adds this almost like warm, dense coating of something honeyed to the lactonic accord. Then you have that beautiful emblematic tonka bean facet that again adds that Bianco Latte effect to the fragrance. But I also start to pick up a caramelly vanillic accord. And why I say caramelly vanillic is because I feel like it's either, imagine like a caramel infused vanilla accord, or the other way around, like a vanilla infused caramel accord, you know. So it's something a little bit caramelly with something a little bit vanillic, but again it feels all in all creamy and dense and rich. And it adds another layer of something sweet to the fragrance on one hand, and another layer of something dense to the fragrance on the other hand. So the texture of this fragrance feels all in all much thicker, much richer, much denser. Of course, when I smell them side by side, I am able to pick up differences, you guys. I don't think it's possible to come or to release a fragrance that smells 101 in the opening, 101 in the hard part, 101 in the dry down part to Bianco Latte. This is pretty much impossible. You would have to get their specific formula, you would have to source the same exact ingredients, you know, or like raw materials, not ingredients. So yeah, that's pretty much impossible. But I feel like from all the inspirations I've tried, the inspiration that comes closest to my nose, keep in mind, maybe you'll have a different experience, but to my nose, the inspiration that comes closest is this one. It's Nyla Vanielle from Arabiyat Prestige. It's the one that's the most balanced, like the attention is the most balanced, or is the most equally split among different accords, and I feel like this is what makes it the most similar to Bianco Latte. Because look, for instance, in this one from Parfumat is the lactonic accord that's the most highlighted for sure, you guys. So you will get a lot of lactonic facets peeking through that are creamy and dense, rich and full bodied for sure. Nothing to complain, amazing inspiration, kudos to them because they are a Romanian brand. But I don't pick up much of the caramel, I pick up a pinch of vanilla, you know. Then when it comes to Eclaire by Lattafa, or what Lattafa chose to do with this DNA, they again have amplified the lactonic accord, they have stretched it out a little bit, added a lot of powder sugar, but this specific type of powder sugar infused with vanilla. This is how this fragrance smells like, with a lot of tonka bean. What Zimaya chose to do with this DNA, they made the opening of this fragrance very similar to the OG fragrance, but then the heart and the dry down, to me, I'm still able to get peaks, let's just say, or facets of Bianco Latte, but like I've mentioned, they are coated into the most delicious butterscotch caramel with a milky feeling. So this is their own twist to the blend. So let me close out the video because my battery is about to die. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. If you have tried these fragrances, if you have tried Bianco Latte, let me know which one do you think is the most similar to Bianco Latte. Let me know which one is your favorite one and why. Like I always say, not only that I would love to hear your feedback, but I'm sure everyone who's watching this video interested in purchasing any of these inspirations could really come across, could really find your feedback more than useful as well. This is what I wanted to say. I will see you in my next video. Don't forget to like the video, please. The situation with the bots is still going on pretty strong, so if you want to support my channel, like the video, leave me a comment. But I will see you in my next video. But until then, I want to wish you an amazing day wherever you are. Bye guys.